All right, guys, so we're going to try something new out today. There's a YouTuber that me, Housephone, Camgirl, etc., we're all big fans of. His name is Yadig, 4 O's, 2 G's, and he made a video. It's very similar to the content that appears on his channel. His link is down below in the description. And he sent it over, and he's like, would you want to run this on No Jumper? I mentioned No Jumper. We talk about some stuff that you guys talked about on the No Jumper show. I said, yeah, sure, why not? And while we're at it, other YouTubers, if you want to do a guest video like this, if you have a piece of content that you think might be applicable, hit us up. So with that said, here it is, Yadig's video.
What's good, everyone? It's your boy Yadig, 4 Eyes, 2 J's here, and today we're here to talk about the long-lost Young Thug and Migos collab project, Migos Thuggin'. Announced to much anticipation from fans all the way back in 2015, this project over the years has become something of a myth to longtime fans of both artists, and I want to break down the full story, so let's get into it. So firstly, I'm going to assume I don't need to give Migos or Young Thug any sort of an introduction. You guys should know who they are by now. Both hailing from the star-studded city of Atlanta, they've been collaborating since 2013, and between the individual collaborations and the group collaborations, they've released a plethora of tracks, ranging from mainstream anthems to underground classics. However, the two would shock the internet in 2015 with the announcement of a collab project rightfully titled Migos Thuggin'. This was the cover that was shared at that time, and later on the release date was set for Halloween 2015. However, we all know how Young Thug is with release dates. Shout out iTunes, hopefully that drops sometime in the next decade. So unsurprisingly, Halloween 2015 came and went. However, then in December, another date was given for the project, Christmas Day, and this time it seemed a little bit more official because not only was there a date, but there was also the release of an official song called Crime Stoppers, which also featured Skipper the Flipper. And if you guys haven't heard this song before, after you watch this video, I urge you to go. It's one of my favorite collaborations between them, and Young Thug on that hook is killer. However, the bad news here is, despite an official song coming out, Christmas Day came and no project was released. Then after this, basically nothing was heard of again about the tape in a proper press release manner. And although the idea of Young Thug and Migos on a full project was an exciting prospect at that time, over a short period, the once hotly anticipated project turned into merely a dream project for fans, as the album seemed doomed to never release. And although we never heard officially from the label or someone like that about what exactly happened with this project, over the past few years, we've gotten a few people very close to the situation speak on the project candidly with corroborating stories. Firstly, in early 2016, Offset had this to say about the project in his DJ Vlad interview.
Right, because this was the Migos Thuggin' project, right?
Yeah, that was gonna be a big project too, but Leo, you know, blocked the play. He ain't with it, he ain't stamp it. So we couldn't go through with it.
Then not too long after this, London on the Track, a well-known producer who has worked with Young Thug countless times, was also asked about the project by Vlad in an interview, and this is what he had to say.
I ain't getting too all that with Leo. I don't know what he's doing, but I think that is part of the problem. As far as why that didn't drop. Yeah.
And as you heard right there, they both pointed towards Leo Cohen quote-unquote blocking or shelving the project, which basically translates to the head of a label never allowing the project to drop. Now, Leo Cohen is someone who has a very storied history within hip-hop and music in general. It's way too long for me to get into, but all you kind of need to know is that he's been around for ages. He's worked with the likes of Jay-Z, Kanye West, and crucially to this story is that he is a founder of 300. Now, 300, if you're not aware, is a record label that at that time period, both Young Thug and Migos were signed to. Now this is where the layers start to get a bit deeper, because what starts to surface over the next few years is that Migos were having huge problems with 300 and wanted off the label basically since 2015. In fact, around the middle of 2015, they even said at one point in time they were independent and no longer with 300, which Leo, again who was the head of 300 at that time, quickly denied, and in fact they went on to release more music with 300 after that time. However, that is very telling of the rift between Migos and 300 at that time period. Then years later, once completely disconnected from 300 and only with QC and Motown, Migos would give more insight into their problems with 300. Quote, 300 was the biggest hurdle. They tried to hold us against our will. So between the interviews with Offset and London on the Track, as well as us knowing more about the problems that Migos are going through with 300 at that time period, it's pretty safe to say that in some way, shape or form, whether it was specifically Leo Cohen or more so 300 in general, it was was really the labels that stopped the project coming out at that time period. Then even more recently, we got more insight about what was going on, courtesy of Adam22 of No Jumper on the No Jumper podcast.
But I heard the whole story about how it happened though, is that like they were cool for a while, they did the tape together, and then like, you know, one was hot and the other one wasn't hot, and they wanted like the one who wasn't hot wanted to put it out, and then all of a sudden the roles were reversed, and like Migos were down and Thug was up, and then like so and so wanted to put it out, and they never were able to arrive at a time, and then now it's like old as fuck.
Now it's just too old, yeah.
When I heard it was like 3 years ago, so it's definitely ancient as fuck now.
Jesus.
A big shout out to Housephone, Camgo, and Adam. They've shown love to me before on the podcast and have been fans of them for years, so much appreciated. But let's get back to this story. Firstly, it's crazy to think that Adam has actually heard the project in full. I can only imagine what it sounds like. And secondly, the reasoning he gave behind the project not dropping about, you know, them being up and down and kind of hot at different times kind of does make sense when you break it down. For example, Migos in 2014 were coming off of 2013's Versace and had 2 certified hits that year, whereas in 2015 they didn't have a single certified song for the whole year. I'm not saying that they necessarily fell off or irrelevant, but they clearly didn't have as much success compared to the years before. But then contrast this with Young Thug, who had 2 certified hits in 2015 alone, and you kind of see why that reasoning makes sense, especially from a label perspective. However, all in all, I don't really think it's one particular reason. I think it's like a mixture of things that happened. I think the Migos beef with 300 definitely played a huge role into it, and also the fact that Migos were kind of on a little bit of a downtrod, whereas Young Thug was hotter at that time, probably played into it as well. Especially from a label perspective, your role in that situation is really to try to get Migos back hot again and get them back on top. It's also worth pointing out that over the course of time, we have seen a couple records leak, which are rumored to be from those Migos Thuggin sessions and were thought of to be a part of the project at one point in time. However, we don't know that for sure. But yeah, I guess that's kind of like everything about Migos Thuggin right now. Back in 2019, a couple Instagram posts had people excited about the prospect of the album maybe being a thing again and possibly coming out, but nothing real was ever said or came from that, and that was more fan speculation than anything. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you guys think it's coming? Do you guys want it still? It's really interesting to think about in hindsight, because imagine that release back in 2015. Considering how big the Migos and Young Thug are right now, that would be an iconic project for sure. And before we finish this video, guys, I want to give a couple quick shoutouts from the Instagram. Big shoutouts goes to Bricks, and also Patches Baby for following me over on my IG. I appreciate both of you guys showing me love over there. If you guys don't follow your boy at @YaDig, make sure to go follow and show me some love. Also, like, subscribe, comment, turn on notifications, all that good YouTube stuff. And there are more videos of mine on screen right now. Make sure to check them out if you haven't.